In our relentless pursuit of love and connection, many of us fall into the trap of chasing after others, desperately seeking their attention and validation. We believe that by persistently pursuing someone, we can win them over, only to find ourselves in a cycle of disappointment and heartache. However, the principles of Stoicism offer a perspective on this age-old dilemma, teaching us that true fulfillment lies not in the chase, but in cultivating self-mastery and inner peace. Stay with me as we go into the timeless wisdom of the Stoics and uncover why chasing people is a futile endeavor, and how embracing these ancient teachings can lead us to more profound and authentic connections. 1. The futility of external validation. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. In our quest for love and acceptance, we often look to others to fill the void within us. We chase people, hoping that their attention and affection will provide us with the validation we crave. However, this pursuit is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of where true validation stems from. The Stoics teach us that true fulfillment can only come from within, and that seeking external validation is a never-ending cycle of disappointment. When we chase others, we relinquish our power to them, allowing their actions and words to dictate our sense of self-worth. We become slaves to their perception of us, constantly seeking their approval and fearing their rejection. This path leads us down a rabbit hole of insecurity, where our happiness is dependent on the whims of others, leaving us vulnerable and unfulfilled. Instead, the Stoics encourage us to look inward, to cultivate self-acceptance and self-love. When we derive our validation from within, we become impervious to the opinions and actions of others. We no longer need to chase them, for we are complete and content within ourselves. 2. The illusion of control. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Marcus Aurelius. One of the driving forces behind our pursuit of others is the illusion of control. We believe that by chasing someone, we can influence their thoughts, feelings, and actions towards us. We convince ourselves that if we just try hard enough, if we send enough messages or make enough grand gestures, the object of our desire will eventually reciprocate our affections. However, this belief is nothing more than a fallacy. The truth is, we have no control over the thoughts, feelings, or actions of others. We cannot force someone to love us, no matter how hard we try. The Stoics remind us that the only thing we truly have control over is our own mind and our own actions. By chasing others, we not only waste our energy on something we cannot control, but we also neglect our own personal growth and development. Instead of focusing on improving ourselves and cultivating inner peace, we become consumed by the pursuit of something that may never be attainable. The Stoics encourage us to shift our focus inward, to cultivate self-discipline and self-mastery. When we let go of the illusion of control over others, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of chasing and disappointment, and instead, we can channel our energy into becoming the best versions of ourselves. 3. The paradox of desire. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Epictetus. At the heart of our pursuit of others lies a paradox. The more we chase someone, the more elusive they become. The harder we try to attain something, the more we reinforce our belief that we lack it, perpetuating a cycle of desire and disappointment. The Stoics teach us that desire is the root of all suffering. When we crave something outside of ourselves, whether it be a person, an object, or a particular circumstance, we set ourselves up for disappointment. For even if we attain the object of our desire, the satisfaction is fleeting and we soon find ourselves craving something else. By chasing others, we feed into this endless cycle of desire and dissatisfaction. We become consumed by the idea that we need this person in our lives to be happy, and we pursue them relentlessly, often blind to the consequences of our actions. Instead, the Stoics encourage us to practice contentment and gratitude. Rather than chasing after what we don't have, we should appreciate and find joy in what we do have. This mindset not only cultivates inner peace, but also helps us attract healthier and more fulfilling relationships into our lives. 4. The fallacy of perfectionism. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus. Many of us chase others because we have an idealized notion of who they are and what they can offer us. We project our own fantasies and expectations onto them, convincing ourselves that they are the perfect partner, the missing piece that will complete us. However, this belief is rooted in the fallacy of perfectionism. No human being is perfect, and no relationship can live up to the unrealistic standards we often set for them. By chasing someone based on our idealized perceptions, we set ourselves up for disappointment and disillusionment. The Stoics teach us to embrace reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. They encourage us to let go of our idealized notions and expectations, and instead to accept people and situations for what they truly are, with all their flaws and imperfections. When we stop chasing the illusion of perfection, we free ourselves from the cycle of disappointment and instead open ourselves up to more authentic and fulfilling connections. We learn to appreciate people for who they are rather than who we want them to be, and in doing so, we cultivate deeper, more meaningful relationships. 5. The virtue of self-sufficiency. The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Epictetus. In our pursuit of others, we often neglect the most important relationship of all, the one we have with ourselves. We become so consumed by the chase that we forget to cultivate our own sense of self-worth and self-sufficiency. The Stoics teach us that true happiness and fulfillment come from within, and that we must learn to be self-sufficient, to find joy and contentment in our own company. When we are self-sufficient, we no longer need to chase others to fill a void within us, for we are already complete and whole. By building self-sufficiency, we not only free ourselves from the cycle of chasing and disappointment, but we also attract healthier and more fulfilling relationships into our lives. When we are comfortable in our own skin and content with our own company, we no longer pursue others out of desperation or neediness. Instead, we approach connections from a place of abundance, seeking to enhance our already fulfilling lives with meaningful relationships. 6. The distortion of reality. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Epictetus. When we chase someone, we often distort our perception of reality. We convince ourselves that this person is the key to our happiness, the missing piece that will make our lives complete. We idealize them, overlooking their flaws and imperfections, and we become consumed by the pursuit of something that may not align with our true desires or values. The Stoics remind us that our perception of reality is often skewed by our own biases, desires, and expectations. We project our own fantasies onto others, and in doing so, we lose touch with the objective truth of who they truly are. By growing a more objective and detached perspective, we can see people and situations for what they are, rather than what we want them to be. This allows us to make more informed and rational decisions, rather than being driven by our desires and impulses. When we let go of the distorted perceptions that fuel our chase, we open ourselves up to more authentic and fulfilling connections. We can appreciate people for who they truly are, rather than the idealized version we have created in our minds. 7. It breeds unhealthy attachment. The Stoics taught that to achieve inner peace, one must practice detachment from external things outside our control. By incessantly chasing after someone, we breed an unhealthy level of attachment and dependency on that person. We make our happiness conditional on whether they reciprocate our advances or not. However, the Stoics would remind us that pinning our contentment on something we cannot govern is a surefire path to suffering. As Epictetus wisely stated, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Rather than clinging to the inconstant affections of others, we must learn to derive fulfillment from within. This unhealthy attachment also puts us in a constant state of anguish, as we become overwhelmed by fear, jealousy, and obsession over the person we chase. We may lash out angrily when they do not return our affections, or spiral into despair and depression when rejected. The Stoics would argue that by making our emotional well-being entirely contingent on forces outside our control, we have surrendered our prized autonomy of mind. True peace can only be achieved by loosening our grip on that which we cannot command. 8. It stems from insecurity, not virtue. When we relentlessly pursue someone, it often arises not from a place of virtue, but from deep-seated insecurities about our own self-worth. We chase after their validation because we feel inadequate or unworthy without it. The Stoics, however, focused their efforts on cultivating true virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. They taught that true satisfaction comes from living with conviction according to your principles, not from the fickle opinions of others. As Marcus Aurelius stated, if you don't have a consistent goal in life, you can't live it in a consistent way. By chasing others, we reveal that we are looking outwardly for value rather than embodying it from within. The Stoics would likely argue that such insecurity is rooted in assigning external factors like relationships or status an obscene amount of importance to your self-worth. True self-esteem, they believed, should be derived from evaluating your own actions and character rather than how others judge you. By chasing romantic interests relentlessly out of insecurity, you demonstrate that you are virtuous only to receive their approval rather than for its own sake. As Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to cherish virtue as the only good and to walk in its paths." 9. It shows lack of self-control. One of the most fundamental Stoic principles was using reason to govern your desires and emotions rather than being ruled by them. The endless pursuit of someone is the antithesis of this. It stems from letting uncontrolled passions and impulses drive your behavior. The Stoics believed that lacking self-mastery over your impulses was the root cause of unhappiness and poor judgment. No one is free who is not master of themselves, Epictetus aptly stated. By chasing others uncontrollably, we relinquish our freedom to our whims rather than living with disciplined intention. The Stoics viewed this lack of self-control as the primary source of torment and poor decision-making. Epictetus taught that we must undergo rigorous self-training to govern our cravings and aversions rationally rather than be tyrannized by them. However, when you chase someone obsessively, you demonstrate that you are enslaved by your unbridled desires for them, rather than a master of your own mind and actions. This inevitably leads to recklessness, indignity, and self-debasement, the total opposite of the virtuous character the Stoics sought to cultivate. 10. It robs you of the present moment. A central tenet of Stoic philosophy was the importance of being fully present and engaged with the current moment. The Stoics avoided dwelling on the past with regret or longing for the future, as these rob you of the only point of time in which you can actually take action, the present. However, when you chase after someone, you become consumed with a future fantasy of being with them, rather than being centered in your here and now reality. As Epictetus wisely said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Chasing projects us into a future we have no control over. By always chasing after an idealized future romance, you lose out on fully immersing yourself in the rich details of the present. You may miss out on other wonderful people and experiences around you as you hyper-focus on this one individual. The Stoics believed that anxious preoccupation with the future robs the mind of tranquility and prevents it from resting in the only reality it can directly influence, the here and now. As Seneca wrote, "There is nothing the busy man is less busied with than living." The chase quite literally distracts us from truly being alive. 11. It creates harmful judgments. The Stoics worked to avoid rendering harsh judgments about others or circumstances, as these breed negativity, resentment, and false perceptions. Yet by desperately chasing someone, we are judging them as categorically superior, more valuable, or important than ourselves. We decree them as something we cannot be happy without possessing. However, as Epictetus taught, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. It is our judgments that something is desirable yet unattainable that torments us, not the reality itself. Chasing shows we have cast someone in an unrealistic light. By pedestaling the person we chase, we inherently judge ourselves as inferior, flawed, and lacking. We make catastrophic life evaluations that we are incomplete without this individual gracing our life. This harsh self-judgment goes against the Stoic ideal of holding equanimity towards all external events and viewing oneself with impartial logic. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Very little is needed for everything to be upset and ruined, only a slight lapse in reason." The chase clouds our reason through cataclysmic judgments about ourselves and others. 12. It avoids taking responsibility. A key concept in Stoic thought was taking full responsibility for your situation and emotions rather than blaming external forces. The Stoics believed we always have the ability to govern our perspective and reaction to events through reasoned choice. When we chase others, however, we place the responsibility for our happiness and fulfillment onto someone else rather than shouldering it ourselves. We become passive victims of their reciprocation rather than active crafters of our inner lives. As Marcus Aurelius bluntly stated, "The choice is yours alone, not mine." Chasing is an avoidance of the radical self-determination the Stoics prescribed. In addition, by making our contentment conditional on being with someone, we give them total power and control over our emotional destiny. We abnegate the core Stoic principle that no person or circumstance truly has control over our judgments and reactions. Only we grant them that power through our thoughts. Rather than taking responsibility for our perspective, when chasing, we put someone else in the driver's seat of our inner life. We ignore the Stoic teaching that we each have full autonomy to remap how we see situations into something empowering. Chasing cedes this power, leaving us tossed around by the tides of forces outside our command. If you have made it this far, comment down below with the word 100% to confirm that you have received the knowledge from this video. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.